Hi, Mick McQuaid here with the fourth of 6 week 1 videos in database management. This is going to be about the things that we will avoid learning in this class. So we're going to avoid learning database administration. Database administrators are well-paid specialists who manage databases. And when you attempt to reserve plane tickets and the system says, please wait, it is the database administrator who's trying to minimize that please wait time. SQL or SQL is a declarative language, meaning that you describe what you want, not how to do it. And the database administrator or the system itself figures out how to do it. You need advanced courses to become a database administrator. Database security is a big topic. Adversaries try to break into databases all the time. One popular family of attacks, for example, is SQL injection. That means trying to subvert a SQL query by inserting malicious code into it. And we're not going to learn about that here. I'll mention it later and show you an example of it, but we're not going to learn about how to avoid it. The use of ancillary tools like database visualizers. I'm going to show you one such tool. There are plenty of self-explanatory GUIs that you can use. You don't need to learn how to use a GUI to work with databases because it's really obvious. You don't need any tuition in it. You do need tuition to use the command line. And so that's what, and the command line is often the only way that's available. You often actually have to log into a remote computer and use the command line to work with databases. So we're going to learn the command line approach and avoid the GUIs. I'm not going to talk much at all about the operating system, but you can greatly improve your use of SQLite by learning about the operating system. And I have a series of web pages, and eventually it will have videos about this on my personal website, mickmcquaid.com. But we won't be doing that here. We won't be learning client-server database systems like PostgreSQL or MySQL. So many database classes use a client-server system, and you have to set them up, which is quite complicated and usually loses most students in the first couple of weeks of class. But you're rarely going to do that setup in the workplace, so I don't personally think it's worth it to learn how to set them up. And SQLite doesn't require any setup except to install it, and even then, that's only needed on Windows because on Mac and Linux, it's already set up for you. And by the way, it does exist already on Windows, so your browser has SQLite built into it, but the way it's built into it, you can't use it at the command line. So you already have probably several copies of SQLite on Windows, but you can't actually use them interactively. Okay, and we're not going to learn advanced SQL features like window functions or recursive queries. There are lots and lots of advanced SQL features that are not needed for basic database work. I'll show you one example, but you're not going to be required to use it in your project. The SQL queries that you'll write in this class will be simple, and we just don't have time to get into the advanced SQL features, and only a subset of you will actually use them in the workplace. We won't explore data warehousing, so that's a specialized area of database management used for analysis and reporting, and it stores data in denormalized fashion. So we're going to learn how to normalize data, not denormalize it. And you can take a separate class in data warehousing in many universities. We're not going to learn much about NoSQL databases. I'm going to have 2 short videos about them, but we're not going to learn we're not going to actually use them. It's just so you'll know what's out there. So a lot of database developers didn't like SQL in the past. These were primarily advanced programmers, and they preferred to write programs than use a declarative language like SQL. So they created databases that you could program instead of using SQL. And they called these NoSQL databases. And market pressure eventually forced them to adopt some SQL features and change the name to mean not only SQL instead of NoSQL. And as I said, they typically require programming expertise for practical use. And they can be optimized for very specific use cases. So they're used by a lot of very large companies to do things that are very particular, that don't range outside of the domain of, say, document storage or key value storage. And they work best in these special cases, so they're primarily used for those. And we're not going to get into data-intensive applications. So a lot of contemporary applications are data-intensive rather than compute-intensive. And you could call what we do data-intensive. But this interesting book shows how you can use relational databases in concert with NoSQL databases in data-intensive applications. So I urge anyone who wants to get into advanced database usage to read this book. This is a very popular book among database specialists, but it's way too advanced for this class. Okay, and so that's the end of that. So thank you for your attention, and I look forward to you watching the last two videos for this week.